I was reading a conservative pundit I follow on Twitter, Denise McAllister, this week, where she was giving some long explanation for some long, complicated solution she had to the whole black-white thing. And so I don't know if these days it's just a black thing or a white thing, but whatever it was, right in the middle of it, she said, and white people are mass shooters. Full stop. Hey, Denise, 75% to 90% of mass shooters are black. If you don't take my word for it, believe the New York Times, not Mother Jones, who says it's basically zero. She said I was being defensive. She said that, well, of course, Colin, I'm not counting this. I'm not counting that. So she does the old Mother Jones thing, which is to look at the long cornucopia of categories of shootings, and you just start stripping out every category where there's a lot of black people in it, and pretty soon all you're left with is something called mass shootings. Surprise, surprise. Hey, it's just a bunch of white people. Damn, ain't that something? Well, here's the truth. 75, 80, 85, 90% of mass shootings in this country are black people, and we're documenting that every week. 3 or more people shot. This week, we've got like 20 black people. We're going to show here 20 black episodes of mass shooting all over the country. There were a couple of Hispanic shootings out there. I didn't see any white guys doing the mass shooting thing this week. We run into that more often than not. Let's start out in Philadelphia. We all know the big shooting that happened this week. 6 Philadelphia cops were shot by a fella who frequented a local mosque with a long history of crime and violence, long history of getting off on charges like kidnapping and murder. So he gets a hold of a gun, shoots a bunch of cops that are going into his house to bust him for yet another crime. And this happened the following day.
And just tonight, 5 people, including a 16-year-old, were shot just about 2 miles from the scene of that shootout. It happened at 15th and Grange Avenue around 4:30 this afternoon. Police say there were multiple shooters, and they think the victims were targeted as they sat in chairs outside. The search is on for the gunman. One of the victims was shot in the head and back and is in critical condition. The others are expected to survive.
The local NPR affiliate wanted us to know that they are a city under siege. 2 shootings in 2 days rattles North Philly neighbors. This is the same station that runs shows every day that says black people are relentless victims of relentless white racism all the time, everywhere, including yesterday. We're going to do this on my podcast that you can find coming out tomorrow. You can find this on my podcast where they had a big program yesterday where they got this. He's kind of like the it guy now. He's going around explaining to everybody how everything wrong, how there's nothing wrong with black people. It's all about white racism. And so all these mass shootings, well, it's just a thing that either white people are making up or white people somehow caused. If that's the case, white people have been extra busy this week.
Years ago, a young black man gave a speech at a local competition about how African Americans can improve our lot in life. His message was familiar, delivered with verve and style. Develop your mind. Avoid teen pregnancy. Aspire to be more than an athlete or a musician. That speech killed at the contest, cheered on by an audience of black adults who loved what he had to say. But here's the problem. This young man later realized, much to his dismay, that the speech he gave was racist. It was delivered by a black man, cheered on by black people, but perpetuating the very stereotypes about African Americans that have persisted since the first slave ship docked in Virginia with about 20 enslaved people as its cargo. That happened 400 years ago this month. The fight against racism has come a long way, but there is still much to do. The FBI reports a 5-year upward trend in hate crimes. It's hard enough to fight racism, but scholar Ibram X. Kendi says the words we use and the ideas we purvey make it harder. That's just one lesson he's learned over a life of thinking about race and reflecting on his errors, including that speech all those years ago. Ibram X. Kendi is the founding director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center at American University here in Washington. American University owns WAMU, which produces 1A. His new memoir is called How to Be an Anti-Racist. Professor Kendi, welcome back to 1A.
It's a pleasure to be on the show.
I read your book, and it is a really fascinating look at the way that you have thought about racism over the course of your life as a young black man. Why did you start with that story? Because this is the story that opens the book.
Yeah. Well, I think first and foremost, it's probably the most shameful moment of my life. And in many ways, I think being an anti-racist is really being able to confess those shameful moments, those times in which we expressed to thousands of people a litany of anti-black racist ideas.
Let's go out to Kansas City.
Violence strikes the plaza early Sunday morning as 4 teens are shot inside the Sheraton Suites Hotel.
You saw our faces. Like we were just freaking out.
Kansas City Police Department says a group of teens started to fight in a room that led to one of them taking out a gun and shooting.
Just like Philly, they had 2 in 2 days. 4 people shot early Saturday morning in KCMO, Kansas City, Missouri. All fellas, both shootings. Let's head down to Alabama State University and a few others.
A tragic situation in Montgomery, just off Alabama State University's campus tonight.
That's where 2 people have died and at least 3 others were injured.
A tragedy for 2 families in Newport News.
We have seen too many homicides in this city that have been a direct result of domestic violence.
2 people are dead. 2 others are in the hospital after a weekend of violence in Newport News.
Also new this morning, a shooting near a Southwest Atlanta apartment complex sends 2 women to the hospital. It happened off of Cleveland Avenue around 2:30 this morning. Both women were in their 20s. One was shot in the arm, the other in the leg. They were taken to the hospital for surgery and are stable.
The Vernon Parish Sheriff's Office has arrested a 25-year-old man from Fort Polk for a Sunday morning shooting at a club in the Billy Goat Hill area. Deputies say 25-year-old Andres Jones was arrested for 3 counts of aggravated second-degree battery with a firearm and a count of illegal discharge of a firearm. Deputies say inside a man was shot in the calf inside of the club, and 2 other victims had already left.
In front of this North Memphis home, you'll find a sign that reads "Stop the Killing." But it certainly didn't stop today when a woman was gunned down right across the street.
It's time out for all that.
Robert Boatwright lives in this house, and what happened breaks his heart.
The situation and the time that we live in is kind of rough right now.
The chaos started outside this mini-mart at Chelsea and Pierce around 2:30 this afternoon. A witness says a group of people were arguing when 2 men who were involved in the altercation jumped out of their car and started shooting.
Losing their mind, all right.
Ella May goes to this store all the time, but thankfully not today.
But good thing I didn't go, though. I likely got shot. Where all them bullets were going.
A woman and 2 men were hit, all 3 taken to the hospital.
News: 2 men are dead, 3 women hurt after an overnight shooting in Tacoma.
Yeah, Tacoma police saying this happened in the area of East 38th Street and Roosevelt. We know roads are closed in that area right now. But
masked gunmen started shooting outside of her home, hitting 3 people on the porch. 2 of them are teenagers.
3 people were shot just before 5 o'clock this morning near Homan and Chicago Avenues. The victims were on the sidewalk. Someone was firing at them from an alley. A woman was shot in the head. She is critically injured. 2 others, a man and a woman, are stable at the hospital. No one's in custody right now, but police are still looking for the gunman.
Hey, what's up, Baltimore? Police are investigating a triple shooting in Southwest Baltimore. Hey, I just looked this up on Wikipedia. There hasn't been a white person in Southwest Baltimore for 26 years. Here's another shooting down Alabama way. I think it's in the Baptist Town neighborhood of Greenwood. We got 4 people down there. Chicago, 3 critically wounded in near West Side shooting. Back in good old San Diego, Colin's old hometown, man dies in shooting at Logan Heights house party. 2 others took themselves to the hospital. That makes 3. Here's another Chicago shooting. Man killed, 2 wounded in South Shore drive-by. That happened on August the 14th. Remember, this is all like last week, Monday to Monday. Here's a place up in Rodeo, California, and right next to Hercules, California, where good old Colin spent a month squirreled away in a very nice house in a very nice neighborhood, writing a little book called Don't Make the Black Kids Angry. And out in Englewood, now this is Englewood in Chicago, but there's like 3 Englewoods in the country. I mean, there's a lot more than 3, I think, but it's weird. Whether you spell it Englewood or Englewood, you don't want to be there. Anyway, 3 people were shot on the same block where a young father was gunned down, and the whole story, they go through the whole thing, getting shot. The fellas shooting people and getting shot on this block is just a thing. There's our butcher's bill for the week. Somebody counted up. I think I counted up like 20. And you know what? I know if I looked really, really hard, I could find 4 or 5 more. These are mass shootings by the fellas that conservatives, liberals have joined together to try to pretend are not happening.
Please, sir. I want some more.
What? That's why we need the red flag laws, because all these white people going around the country shooting people. Yeah, well, you know what happened to me when the red flags got me. One of my neighbors called the cops and said my car was abandoned. They came and towed my car away. It wasn't abandoned. It was sitting in front of my house, underneath the window where I sleep. Nobody knocked on my door. Nobody said anything. They just grabbed it. They red flagged my car. Man, and it took me 3 days, a lot of money, a lot of hassle to get the car back. What's going to happen with your guns if we start red flagging guns? Whew. Neighbors are going to be calling the cops every single day on anybody with a MAGA hat, anybody that has a Trump bumper sticker, anybody that has an American flag, because we now know today that all those items are proof positive of racial insanity, white supremacy. You better get the guns away from those people. That's the world we live in today. And if you don't agree with that, well, you're just going to make a lot of black kids angry.